So Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling for the head of FEMA, Deanne Criswell, to resign. Now, why? Well, because of these stories that have been propagated by MAGA and Republican politicians and Republican pundits and stuff about this FEMA money that is being spent on migrants that is somehow came from the hurricane relief. At least that's what they want you to believe. Remember, I did a story about this. These are two separate pools of money that Congress had approved, and now they're mad that it's being spent for their designated purpose and there's not enough money for hurricane relief. So Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to bring the head of FEMA before the oversight committee and get to the bottom of this and wants their resignation. Okay, well, if they were serious about disaster relief, two things on that. One, why is Speaker Mike Johnson not calling the House back into session? He could. They don't have to be out until November 12th like they're currently scheduled. This is their election recess. They normally do this during election years, but they could go back. They would only have to be in session for a day, maybe two. They could pass something, kick it over to the Senate. Chuck Schumer brings the Senate back for a day or two, maybe even at the same time. They get to work, they get it passed, Joe Biden signs it, it's done. But they're not doing that. So that's one. Why isn't she calling on Speaker Johnson to bring the House back into session? Well, she's not. Two, when they passed this continuing resolution and they did give FEMA some money, there was calls for additional money to go to FEMA for additional disaster relief because they knew things like this were coming up and FEMA was worried about having enough money for disaster relief. Well, guess what? Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against the additional funding. So you're telling me she wants to be mad that there's not enough money for FEMA, and they're making up this story about the money being diverted for migrants because, well, they want to hate on the migrants when they couldn't pass the additional funding for FEMA in the first place. This is all politics. They're trying to get a scandal to rock the Biden administration. They've never been able to land an actual scandal that they haven't made up that's completely false. But they're trying to turn this into some big scandal so they have something to complain about the Biden-Harris administration to get voters worked up. This is completely ridiculous. They had options for what they could do if they don't like the way the disaster relief is going. But they're making up this story about migrants getting funds that was from a pool of money to help migrants, and now they want the head of FEMA to resign. At least Marjorie Taylor Greene does. Hopefully she gets beat in November and we can be done with the stupid bullshit that they like to pull, just trying to make a scandal out of nothing because they're not happy with something they voted against. You know, they could have had more funding. She voted against it. And then Mike Johnson could call the House back in session, but they're not. They're working against it, but then complaining that not enough is being done. It doesn't make any sense. And I think rational people are sick of the way Republicans are doing things like that because it's not helping anybody.